So today I'll be making pho. Right now I have onion and ginger going into the oven at 550 to broil. That way we can get a nice char on them to really bring out the flavors of the alliums. So right here I have coriander, cinnamon sticks, allspice, juniper berries. Basic stuff you need. I also did bring over cloves, those types of things. I'll leave the recipes for my spice blend in the description for you guys. That way, if you wanna try it out, you can make this at home. And so I'm just separating the spices in a separate thing because we're actually going to toast those in the cast iron that I have in the oven once the onion and the ginger has charred really nicely. That's basically, again, just to wake up the flavors of the actual spices. And so this is the oxtail. I find that for pho, oxtail brings out a wonderful flavor, and then that's also a slice of brisket. And this is gonna what we're gonna use to flavor the broth. So this is about 2 pounds of oxtail total. And so we're gonna first cook these off, boil them to get all the blood out and clean them. And then the second boil will be to actually make the soup. One of the things with pho and what a lot of people know it for is that it's a really clean soup. So the cleaner your broth is, the better quality your pho is in theory. It's just one of the things, one of the characteristics of pho, and especially when you're differentiating between soups like ramen and stuff like that. You want it to be a really clean soup. And so now I'm just adding all the meat to the pot. That way we can get this going. All right, so that's been in the oven for probably about like 5 or so minutes, starting to char up. So I took it out. And then what I'm gonna do is because that pan is still super hot, I'm gonna toast my spices in it without having to actually um, really get another pan ripping hot. So basically, just skipping the step of having to really gas them. I did put it on low though, just in case, because I want to make sure I can smell the spices. Yeah, and just shake it around because you don't want to burn it. So here I will be actually cleaning the bones. That way I can get a clear broth. It's super hot, obviously, so be careful when you do this step. So I'm going to separate the bones first. That way I can wash them. Obviously, get rid of excess water and also clean the pot because you're going to see that there's a lot of gunk on the pot from the raw bones and the meat that you were just using. So yeah, as you can see, just scrubbing it down to make sure that it's all good. Yep. Yeah. And so now just rinsing off the meat to make sure that all the gunk is kind of rinsed off of it. That way we can get, again, that really clean broth. And so I am going to put everything back into another pot of water on the stove. That way we can start getting the actual soup base ready. And then what you do is you dump in your spices and aromatics into the pot as well, and you're just literally going to let it sit for a long time. And so you want to bring it up to a boil, and then ideally, once it's at a boil, you're gonna put the gas on low and then let it simmer. I usually do this the night before, that way you can get the most out of your cook, and then that morning just continue to leave it on simmer. And so right now I'm just adding a little bit of salt just to round out the flavor a little bit more. It might taste bland and you might be worried, but again, a lot of the flavor is actually going to come out once you add the fish sauce too. Also, additionally, we're going to add sugar as well, and the description for those measurements will be in the description below. That way you can get it super accurate if you so desire. And again, just giving it a mix, that way all those seasonings get mixed into the pot. As you can see, all of it's starting to really just fall apart and be super tender. Now, optionally, you can take out the brisket at any point when you want. This is just to prevent it from being overcooked, and then ideally leave it out. That way, it doesn't get super hard and it still remains tender when you actually go to eat the soup. And we're gonna add the piece de resistance of the cornerstone of Vietnamese cooking, which is fish sauce. And so the fish sauce is really gonna amp this up to a whole different level where it just has all that umami goodness. And again, giving it a quick stir just so it incorporates into the soup. And then here it is, the evening after we started it. And so as you can see, it really developed that deep color. And so I've also prepared a smorgasbord of extra things. So that being bean sprouts, bok choy, the tared meat, green onions, and then some sliced ribeye. And then also the pho sticks, or pho noodles, which are obviously going to go in the soup. And this is how I'm going to build my bowl right now. So yeah, just stay tuned. My favorite part easily though is the oxtail. When you really take it out, it just is so tender, it melts in your mouth and is just meaty goodness. But what's nice about pho anyway too is just that it's a really well balanced dish. So you have your meat, you have your veg, you have a lot of different components that really make it taste good, make it work. The onion should be thinly sliced, ideally, though, just so it cooks when the broth gets poured on it. And so, when you do pour on top, make sure that your pot is boiling. That way, it can cook everything super quickly. But the bok choy, I did blanch ahead of time just because, I mean, it's bok choy and you want to make sure that it's not super sandy. And then gonna add the ribeye. And again, like I said, if you have your pot ripping hot boiling, this will cook in seconds right before your eyes. And really, I like my meat rare typically because I'm one of those people, unfortunately. But yeah. And so what you want to do is you want to scoop from the bottom. That way you're not just getting all the fat that sits on the top. So if you scoop from the bottom, you can get a lot more of the flavored broth. And so as you can see, it's starting to cook right now as we add our broth. And this is the perfect recipe for fall, really, just because it's so hearty and warming, and it's one of those dishes that just makes you feel comfortable. But yeah, this is my recipe for pho. And so I just want to thank you for tuning in to watch this recipe. All right, bye.